What is going on, everyone? Tim from Tier Orbital. So today I would like to quickly go over an install commission that I completed on a very unique hilt from Jawas Junkyard. So this is the Claw from Jawas Junkyard, and just like the name describes, it does have a faux claw in the pommel section. I guess you would call it the pommel section, but it's got a very, very unique claw that is ready for weathering. So you can paint this claw to make it look like real bone. Leon from Jawas Junkyard does also suggest Lars's Boneworks on Facebook. The client with this particular hilt wanted the claw to remain black, and I don't know that I would be able to paint this thing to make it look like a bone. It would probably come out looking like crap. So we kept the claw stock. It is almost like it's almost a plastic high strength resin material. It's perfect for painting, right? But I don't have the skills to do that, right? So, and the client didn't want that. So anyhow, very interesting install. I had to approach this a little bit differently, and we'll go over that when we do an up and close, but I was able to make this a removable chassis. The way that the hilt disassembles, it is a removable chassis, so we were able to do that. There's plenty of room for a 28mm speaker. To my surprise, the sound venting in the claw section is really, really good too. So overall, it's a really, really unique hilt. We've got a Graflex red button on it as well, so it's just a super, super unique hilt. And it was, again, to my surprise, it was a breeze to install on, right? So we're going to come into Fusion first, obviously, and talk about the chassis a little bit, and then we'll come up top, and then we'll do a demo, right? So let's come into Fusion. All right, so here is the chassis that I designed for this hilt. So in typical Tim fashion, I've got greeblies, an ungodly amount of greeblies on both sides of the chassis. We have plenty of room for a 28mm speaker in this hilt. So I have a 28mm bass speaker down here. This is from Smugglers Outpost. Did do some mild other greebly patterns along the bottom there. Around back, obviously, we've got our Proffie board tray. So the Proffie does sit in this tray and slides up underneath this lip. I put my logo here, shameless plug. I also put Jawas Junkyard around the other side. Here's our battery tray. Up top is where our lit PCB emitter is, right? So this is essentially an all-in-one chassis. It will work outside of the hilt. However, with this particular install, the emitter section of the hilt, the aluminum emitter section, does slide over this, and it is held in place, right? So it's a hybrid chassis, if you will, and we'll go over that a little bit more in detail. Do have room for a kill switch down here, and here is our single red tactile button. This is a single button setup. And that's it. Nice and simple chassis. Let's come up top and take a look at this hilt. This is the Claw from Jawas Junkyard. Super, super unique looking hilt. So here we have our claw. This is made out of, so we've got aircraft aluminum up top, obviously. The claw, I'm not quite sure what the claw is made out of. I think it's some sort of engineering plastic or very, very high strength plastic. Really nicely detailed though, and it's perfect for painting, right? You could paint this to look like a bone or a claw. So yeah, red button, red Graflex button, and we've got our set screws here. So let's talk about how to get at this chassis, right? So first, you want to unscrew your Graflex red button. There are a series of screws here. You do not need to unscrew this bottom one. Only the top two need to unthread, okay? There is a longer screw that goes in the middle, and the shorter screw goes up top, all right? Once you get those unscrewed, you can pull out the chassis. So here is the chassis, and this is what I meant by the upper emitter section marries into the chassis, right? So it's held in place with a small set screw, and I also did put a small bead of E6K in there just to help it stay secure, right? Proffie board is up top. Our kill switch is down in here. Here is our battery tray, 28mm speaker. Really, really unique application for this chassis. I thought this was going to be a little bit interesting, a little bit more of a difficult install, but the way that I approached it was just keeping this whole emitter as one section and just marrying the chassis into that, right? So, negative, or spring side is your negative. You want to take the flat part of your battery, rest it in that battery tray.
My ally is the Force.
So this was already on. If you don't hear anything, hit that kill switch.
My ally is the Force.
So the way that I put it back in the hilt is you want to line up this hole with where the switch hole is on the upper emitter chassis. Just kind of slide it down into the hilt. You want to check that those holes are lined up, right? And take your long screw, tighten that down. Whoops. And that's gone forever. And then that final upper screw, make sure that is nice and tight. So with the Graflex red button, I did add, I made an extension to the bottom of this spring-loaded switch. That way it can reach that 6x6 red button on the chassis itself. So to put your Graflex button back on, this is a little tricky, right? Because of the awkward size of this hole and where the threads are, you're gonna wanna try and feel for where the threads are and kind of start it nice and easy. You don't wanna cross thread this. And once you get it screwed in all the way, you're ready to go. Let's come down to the bottom. So to my surprise, right, sound venting in this claw is really, really nicely done, right? So we've got 5 small holes on each side of the claw down here. And it gives a great sound venting. I was really surprised. So this is a single button Proffie setup. So to scroll through your fonts, you want to long press and release.
I am no Jedi.
That'll go forward in your fonts. To go back, you hold it down, long press and release.
I am no Jedi.
And it'll go backwards in your font configs. Twist to activate, twist to deactivate are both on. Clash you activate with a single button click. And that's it, right? So let's put a blade in it. This is a 1-inch blade holder. There is also a small set screw, a silver set screw around back here. You want to make sure that is unthreaded. Put your blade in, make sure it's just resting on those PCB pins, and then tighten that set screw, and you're ready to go. Let's see what else we put on here.
You know, I was a chick.
Sister.
One more.
Don't talk back to your elders, child.
Nice feeling hilt too. So that's all I've got. Very interesting hilt to not only design the chassis for, but install on. I am very happy with the way this came out. To the client, I'm going to make sure that your config is saved, and I will place it on your SD card. I have set this up with my stock font config, right? So the majority of the fonts that are on your SD card are all free fonts that are offered. And the config I've just set up with my own blade styles. I am not too schooled on single button Proffie navigation. However, I have set up your config with edit mode and all of that functionality enabled. You will just have to go through the prop file documentation as to what button combinations do what with single button. I'm just not as schooled, but there are ways to change your blade color and enter edit mode, change the volume. You can do all of that with a single button. You'll just have to read up on that documentation, and I will put that documentation on the SD card as well, and you can also find it on FET's website, right? So, to the client, again, thank you very much for trusting me with your install. To the viewers, if anyone has any questions about this particular install, please do not be a stranger. And with that being said, may the force be with you always. Have a good one, everybody.